Man, my electric bill keeps going up, and it's because of those damn data centers. Or is it? Maybe it is a demand issue. Or is it supply? What about renewables and nuclear? How about our infrastructure? Make it make sense. Depending on who you ask, data centers are either awesome for our economy because they bring jobs, tax revenue, and investment, or they're just massive energy hogs, which are driving up the cost for us for the sole benefit of tech companies. So what's actually true? Well, the answer is both, but you're probably only hearing part of the story. Data centers are not the only reason your costs are going up, but in many areas, they are absolutely a major factor. And to understand why, you have to zoom out and look at how the electric grid actually works. So basically, the electric grid works like a three-step chain. First, your power is generated, primarily from natural gas, but also nuclear, renewables, and even coal. Then, it moves across a larger regional grid that manages and balances supply and demand. That's overseen by organizations like PJM, MISO, ERCOT, and CAISO. And finally, local utilities like Florida Power and Light or ComEd deliver that power to your home and then send you the bill. So while your local utility handles the delivery, prices are often shaped by a much larger regional market operating behind the scenes. And in some areas, providers are also paid in advance just to be ready for any surge in demand, which is based on projections that were planned years ahead. So your bill isn't just impacted by what's happening in your town. It's influenced by what's happening across an entire region. For years, demand in the US was relatively flat, or at least it was more predictable. But that's all changed. Since about 2021, large computing centers, like data centers, have added new demand at a speed the system was not built for. And in 2023, data centers accounted for 4.4% of energy consumption. We could see this consumption increase to about 7% by 2028 and 9% by 2030, meaning their usage could more than double in a decade. And much of the grid was planned for slower growth, not sudden clusters of extremely large load showing up in concentrated areas. For context, between 2010 and 2019, overall energy generation was relatively flat, which is how long-term and expensive infrastructure improvements were planned. And even that was already facing backlogs due to normal growth. So much like Lord Helmet just jumping straight to ludicrous speed, data centers kicked our Spaceball 1 grid straight to Plaid.
What the hell was that?
And that's the key issue: scale and speed. But data centers are not the only thing increasing demand. Our normal population growth, new housing, commercial development, and electrification all matter too. Data centers are still one of the fastest growing pieces of that equation. And in some regions, they're big enough to reshape planning, infrastructure needs, and pricing. Because when large new loads hit a grid that's already facing delays, bottlenecks, and long-term planning timelines, the resulting pressure impacts the overall energy generation, the transmission of that energy, and ultimately, the cost of that energy. And this pressure doesn't always stay local. Even if one town pushes back on a new project, people across an entire region may still feel that impact if there's new demand or development elsewhere. So in other words, you don't need a data center right next door to potentially share in those costs. And that's why this debate feels so frustrating. The cost can be applied over a large area, while the benefits and the burdens fall locally. And this is where the conversation often gets too simplistic. Supporters of data center developments are not wrong to point out the upsides: a larger tax base, construction activity, long-term jobs, and in some cases, investment tied to local infrastructure or public services. But the opponents aren't wrong either. They're raising legitimate concerns about strain on infrastructure, environmental impact, loss of green space, and quality of life for nearby communities. They're also right to ask who ultimately pays when rapid development forces the grid to expand faster than planned. So no, opponents are not just being hysterical or fear-mongering.
The sky is falling!
But it's also not fair to blame data centers for everything. It is fair to say that they are now a very important piece of a very complex system. Yes, your electric bill is going up. Yes, data centers are to blame, but they are not the only reason. The bigger point is this: energy prices are shaped by a regional system, not just by what's being built in your town. And once you understand that, the rest of this debate starts to make a whole lot more sense.